Good stuff, Matt. Thank you very much. I know you got to get back to work, so thank you for your time.
Guys.
We appreciate it. All right, I want to go back.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you later. I want to talk to Kenny RODA here for a second, and I want to bring this up because I got to tell you, this is one of those things that really aggravated me today about the process, and I might be the only guy in Northeast Ohio that was aggravated, but there was a story that came out today, Kenny, that Wisconsin head coach Gary Anderson was contacted by the Browns, and the fact that they had interviewed Gary Anderson or talked to him and didn't talk to Jim Tressel, I mean, seriously? You got to be kidding me. If they didn't want to talk to Tressel and talk to Gary Anderson, that's one of those things where I was shaking my head in disbelief.
I agree with you now that you bring it up. I really didn't think about it. You know, I saw that and I just kind of glanced over it. Okay, that was another guy they interviewed. But if you look at the success that Anderson has had versus what Jim Tressel has had, you would think Tressel would have at least got a courtesy interview from the Cleveland Browns. But you know what it goes back to there, guys? It goes back to if they interviewed him and they didn't hire him, the flack that they would have taken by not hiring him and taking a Mike Pettin or a Gary Anderson or somebody over him. So I think they felt it was better not to interview him at all so they wouldn't get that backlash if he didn't get the job. But you're right. When you hear that Anderson was interviewed and Tressel wasn't, again, it makes you wonder about Lombardi and Banner and Haslam, who was part of the so-called Three Stooges.
Yeah, Eric the Wonder Boy, or Eric the Wonder Boy, I called you. Eric, the referee. Hi, Eric.
I just want to know how much this coaching debacle played in the firing of the two top guys. I mean, you got to think that maybe a coach, a Josh McDaniels, was on the Browns' radar and Lombardi had something set up, or maybe another candidate was set up, and they totally botched that, and Haslam just said, I'm done.
All right, well, hang on. We're going to go around the horn on your question. Mike, me, and then we're also going to bring in Craig Lindell from Waiting for Next Year. Hi, Craig. Nice to see you. All right, we're going to ask you that question, too, and we're going to go to Kenny, too. Let me just start the ball rolling on this thing. I think the coaching process and the fact that this organization has been under fire from national media, also, season ticket holders that were calling the Browns, I think it did have a play in this. I don't think that Jimmy Haslam wanted to be put in the position that he was in. I think that when people were saying that the organization was a joke, that it was toxic, that there were all these other issues going on, I think he felt like that was a direct reflection on him, and that's why we got to today. I don't think there's any question about it. Kenny?
I agree with you 100%. Let me say that I would disagree with that, okay? I think there's a perception out there that you all started. Again, denial. Yep. He blamed it on us that, he fired his coach after a year that they got hoodwinked by the Miami Dolphins for Devon Best, and now he gets rid of his general manager and his CEO in less than a year's time. That's not us creating that. That's Jimmy allowing that to happen and then reacting to it. So for him to blame us, I think, is ludicrous. He's in denial. But I think after hearing it so many times, and you saw how aggravated he looked after the press conference, firing him, and this press conference, he felt he had to do something, and if anybody's going to be to blame, it's going to be all on him now as opposed to letting other people make decisions. And the Alex Shiner, that's great. He's the president. He can handle the business side of things. Hopefully he does nothing with the football side of things because I haven't heard anything about him knowing anything about football as far as talent evaluation and all that stuff. So Farmer and Haslam, it's on those guys along with Penn.
All right, Mike, your thoughts?
Well, 13 months ago, I still wonder why you're bringing a general manager who never really gets to be a general manager.
Well, he wasn't. I mean, he really wasn't the general manager. Because what happened is you brought in a guy who was head of player personnel. You wanted Ray Farmer because you saw what he did in Kansas City. So then you bump Lombardi up so that you can make the position, because otherwise you couldn't make a lateral move there.
Well, then make that decision early on, is what I'm saying. Don't give everybody the perception that you're bringing in these two guys. You have Joe Banner and Michael Lombardi, and those are going to be the guys that bring you this. You bring in Ray Farmer, who last year was the assistant. If that's your guy going forward, identify him early. And I think that was part of the confusion of this whole thing. Because in my opinion, I think Michael Lombardi got a bad deal. I really do. I think he got a horrible deal. I think it was oil and water with Banner and Lombardi. I don't think those two were ever on the same page, nor were they supposed to be. And I feel bad for Michael Lombardi. I got to be honest with you. I think he was vilified from the get-go, and the fact that he was kept in the closet like a bad little boy or a guy left in the corner, it still blows my mind because he certainly knows his stuff. He certainly knows how to put teams together. I think he got a raw deal, Andy, and I don't think unfortunately, we're never going to know how good that pair could have been and how much Joe Banner really wanted to just get this thing going and move aside and hand it off to somebody who was ready to take it to the next level.
All right, we're going to take a phone call here in a second, but I do want to go to Craig Lindell. Craig, what do you think?
I think this coaching search had tons to do with what happened today. I think the Browns are better off today than they were yesterday. There's a huge risk still looming out there with Jimmy Haslam. We still don't know what kind of owner he's going to be, but there's one thing that we know for sure today is that he is not going to sit there and take the bullets for somebody else. You know, if he's going to have to take the fire the way he did when they fired Chud and all these different things, because at the end of the day, if he's got to take all the hits, he's not going to get any of the praise if things go right eventually. I think he felt like this coaching search was an uphill battle, and I think that I don't think he actually believed what he said about, you know, you all creating this situation. Perception is reality at some point, and I don't think he wanted his job to be this hard. It's never been this hard for him to be likable, and for him to have to do that at the expense of being buddies with Joe Banner, I don't think it was worth it to him anymore.
Oh, that's a great point, Craig. Excellent point. All right, I do want to take a phone call, so hang on. We're going to I have another roundtable question for both of you guys, so hang tight. I knew that was going to happen. I'm having a little issue with my phone bank here. It keeps going into long pause. We're going to go back to the phones here. All right, let's talk to Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah. You're on Dogs on the Run. Oh, there we go. Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Your thoughts?
I just wanted to give you my input on the Browns and Jimmy Haslam.
Sure.
I believe that Jimmy Haslam, he's hardly been in position for long enough to do anything, but he is doing something, which is something we haven't seen happen with the Browns for like 20 years. And so I just think that Cleveland would do good to support Jimmy Haslam and let him know that they appreciate what he's trying to do, and to really stay out of this business concerning the pilot flying J. I think that's really inappropriate for anyone to ask him about when we're talking about the Browns.
Okay, so Deborah, can I give you a little just background on that, why that question might be asked?
Sure.
Okay, so here's the situation. When Jimmy Haslam takes over the team, it's all guns blazing forward for him. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, when the pilot flying J thing came up, he said, and he had stepped away from pilot flying J to do the Browns. Now all of a sudden he decided to go back to pilot flying J and back off the Browns. And so that decision that he had to do the pilot flying J stuff, and I don't blame him. I'm not mad at him at all. But he put himself in that position.
Right.
He did, and I think there's a direct correlation between anybody who's under investigation, or at least the process of an investigation about his bread and butter, it's going to affect the Browns. That's just my point.
No, I don't think so. I think it's out of. I'm sure he's been around long enough, been in business long enough to know how to separate the two and keep them compartmentalized. I just think he does.
All right, fair enough. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
She makes some good. She makes some good points, but I disagree with her. If you're the owner of a franchise like that and you paid billions of dollars to get that, and you're running a billion-dollar company, there is a direct correlation with how you run your private business and then how you run your professional sports team. Don't think that those two things don't mesh together. And you're right, Andy. When things started to go bad at Pilot Flying J, there is no doubt in my mind that that played a huge factor in Jimmy Haslam and his ability to kind of oversee things. He might have leaned more heavily on the guys in the front office, but there's no way you can separate those two.
Craig, you look like you're chomping at the bit on that one.
Yeah, I just to think that there's anything separating the two. Did he buy the team without Pilot Flying J money, and does he plan on running the team without having, future income from Pilot Flying J? I understand. It's not. I understand why you might want to compartmentalize it, because I want nothing more than just to be a football fan. But at some point, it's going to distract the guy who's supposed to be running the team, or potentially maybe even have him away from the team by some way, shape, or form.
All right, Kenny, stand by, because I'm going to hit you in a second. I want to take one more phone call here. Chuck in Lakewood. Chuck, how are you?
Hey, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Yes.
What do you got for us, my man?
I just wanted to let you know it's about time to get rid of them losers.
Okay. What was the biggest problem you had with Banner and Lombardi?
They had no class. Banner didn't know what he was doing. And Lombardi just sat around, and I think he just ate.
That's all you think he did?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate the phone call. We don't know what Lombardi did. We don't.
No.
That was by design. Absolutely by design, yes.
I saw a couple tweets today. It was pretty funny that we've heard from Ray Farmer more than we've already heard from Lombardi, and he's been here for a year.
Yeah, that's not true. At least Lombardi had one press conference too. All right, here's my next question because I want to do this.
Shot down.
I want to do this as a
Shot
roundtable, and we'll start with you, Craig, because you got the last shot on the first one. All right, so here's my roundtable question for all of you: if the Browns, when they were bought by Jimmy Haslam, if they were bought and Joe Banner wasn't there, and we were in a situation with no Joe Banner, no Michael Lombardi, do you think the Browns would have had a different head coach if it was just Jimmy Haslam and anybody else? Because I think, based on what he had done in Pittsburgh before and his relationship with understanding this game, I think that they could have gone out and got one of the big guns. I think that he would have been able to pull somebody off of television and put them in the chair and in the seat to run this organization. Let's start with you, Craig. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that Joe Banner had become an impediment to the coaching search. I think he was so steadfast in the organizational structure he wanted based on his past experiences in Philly with Andy Reid and that structure that he automatically eliminated a lot of the top flight candidates, or at least the higher profile candidates. You know, forget Nick Saban, forget even Chip Kelly. I mean, who knows if Chip Kelly would have been more likely to come to Cleveland if Joe Banner hadn't been around. We heard rumors about Ken Wisenhunt. And when you're Jimmy Haslam and you're going around trying to hire a coach and you can't even get Ken Wisenhunt, no offense to Wisenhunt, but he's not exactly, leading the Alabama Crimson Tide, that's got to eat away at you.
All right, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think it had a huge impact on who they were going to hire and who they were going to bring in to this organization, because I think whether or not you formed an opinion of the man you were about to sit down in front of and have some kind of formal interview with, going in, you had an idea what you were getting yourself into, and obviously public perception played something. But when you sit down across from the guy, Andy, you've been in interviews, you've interviewed for jobs, you've had a kind of an idea going in who you were dealing with, but when you sit down, it becomes clear as to what's expected of you and who the guy is and what you're dealing with. I think no doubt that scared away some people, and I think for some people they didn't even pick up the phone. Jimmy Haslam made the phone calls. I thought, as the owner, I thought that was the right move, that he called and said, Andy, we want you to be our next head coach, or we're interested in talking to you. And they said yes or no, and they denied there on the phone. Like, nope, I am or I am not interested. And I think that had a lot to do with the guys underneath them running that team.
Interesting. We're going to bring Ron Reagan in a second. What do you think, Kenny?
I think Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi affected two coaching searches. The original one, as we've talked about here already, about Chip Kelly and some of the other guys, and then this year. Guys, think if Jimmy Haslam would have fired Joe Banner and Mike Lombardi before they started this coaching search, I guarantee, well, I won't say I guarantee you, I think there's a pretty good chance that Mike Pettin isn't the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Somebody else is, because they would have interviewed, or maybe somebody that didn't even consider the job would have considered the job because Banner and Lombardi were gone. So I think both of those guys affected two coaching searches that set the Browns back.
Kenny, why do you think he hung on to him through this coaching search if you think he knew he was going to do it? I'm not 100% sure. I think he was going to do it, but if it was in the back of his mind, why do you think he held on to Lombardi and Banner?
I think he held on because he figured, all right, we're going to get a coach this year that we didn't get last year. And then as that coaching search went on this year, right, and this guy turned it down. This guy came in, didn't want to do a second interview. This guy didn't even want to give you an interview. After going through it a second time, I think Jimmy Haslam finally realized what we all maybe knew or expected from the get-go, that Banner and Lombardi weren't respected throughout the NFL circles in the jobs that they were given with the Cleveland Browns. And I think it took him losing out twice on a head coaching search to finally realize that he had to cut bait and get rid of these guys.
Craig Lindell, waiting for next year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, one last point. I like what Kenny was saying there. What if the final straw occurred after Mike Pettin was hired and somewhere, when they were looking for coordinators? I don't think that Jimmy Haslam knew he was getting rid of these guys until just recently. but something reared its ugly head or became a pattern to Jimmy Haslam where he felt like he had to make this move and he was better off going it alone. And I couldn't tell you, I'm so excited for it. There are still risk factors. Obviously, Jimmy Haslam is a risk in and of himself. But if you look at all the apologies that they had to make for Joe Banner and Michael Lombardi and almost explain away those hirings, they've had to do no such thing when they talk about Alex Shiner, when they talk about Farmer, and even Pettin. I haven't heard a single thing about anybody saying that these guys are unqualified or shouldn't be in their positions. And from my perspective, that's a step forward today.